Welcome to the Crypto Conversion Podcast. Gentlemen, we made it for a second episode. Nobody ended up running out on us. So safe to say we enjoy each other's company, which we already knew. But, just goes to say that we're invested in this project, and hopefully we have many more episodes to come. We appreciate anybody that is tuning back in. Thank you to anybody that tuned into episode 1 as we were flushing out this idea of a podcast. And so we're still trying to figure it out as we go. But we appreciate everybody nonetheless. So as always, it's me, Branden, and we're joined by Matt and Connor. So welcome back, gentlemen. How are you doing this evening?
Great. Yeah, great as well over here. Having a blast.
Great as well.
Enjoying life.
That's good. Awesome. All right. So without further ado, we're going to start most podcasts off with just kind of recapping the news, like what's happened since what's happened since our last episode. I think that'll be a good way for us to kind of each episode will be a timestamp for us and hopefully for any of the viewers listening or watching wherever podcasts are found or on YouTube or Rumble. So we're just going to get into it. Some stories, it'll be different every week, but hopefully we have a Bitcoin story, maybe a ERC20 token or Ethereum story, Binance related topic, BNB perhaps, altcoins, Web3, TradFi, MacroFi, and any other topics that that pique our interest that we run into in the Twitter sphere or in the various news outlets that we frequent throughout the week for investing. And I frequent a lot of them because I still do a lot of trading on the side. So without further ado, let's go into the granddaddy of them all. Bitcoin whale withdrawals this week have been pretty high. We're seeing close to 200 million Bitcoin withdrawn from smaller exchanges, Gate.io experiencing the most withdrawal, approximately 120 million, I was reading. And the charts were just really interesting around that. And we were talking about before, guys, it's just a testament to the not your keys, not your crypto. More people, there had to have been an increase in people buying ledgers, especially in light of what happened with the FTX debacle. And I can imagine that there are a lot more people starting their own multi-sig wallets and things like that. So I'm just curious, Matt, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's good to after FTX, there was a lot of talk about whether Binance was solvent or not, and other exchanges as well. And so I think it's just good to see, this is a true proof of reserves. Did the exchanges actually hold the crypto you have? And it's, it's not good for something to fail, but it's good to know that they're not holding it, right? I am as sad as it is for an exchange to fail. I can't be too mad, right? They manage it poorly.
I'm constantly surprised, though, how much Bitcoin is just out there, though. Just sitting on exchange accounts. It hasn't been touched. Like, that's the thing. Like, there could be Bitcoin that somebody's just been sitting on for whatever reason, and they just haven't done anything with it. Like, I just, knowing from my experience and the people that I've helped with wallets, like, there's people that don't know how to access their accounts for whatever reason. Lost an email, lost their passphrase. It could be a culmination of things, but it's kind of bizarre, but it's interesting. All right, moving on. Let's take a look here. So, Twitter Jack, is introducing some new decentralized social media apps. Damus is the big one. Nostr is the platform where all of them are getting pushed. And we had, what's the one called for Android that I always butcher the name, but
Amethyst.
It's a beautiful gemstone. What is it?
Amethyst.
Amethyst. Amethyst, that's it. I downloaded the app, don't know how to pronounce it, so still haven't opened it yet. I'm a little nervous too. I think it might break my phone, but it's got to be safe. So I just like what Jack's doing since he's left kind of the Twitter bubble and has been building stuff on blockchain in regards to like social media platforms. So it's a step in the right direction. I'm surprised it hasn't. I'm surprised more projects though haven't come out similar to this. I know they're out there, but I'm just not as familiar with some of them.
I think this is a direct response to what I said last time, that there weren't any good decentralized social platforms. I think that was
Sure.
it. It came out immediately after we recorded that, I think. He's listening. Jack is listening to this podcast.
What's
Yeah,
interesting
and
is,
yeah, go.
yeah, I was just going to say with Nostra, what's interesting is the project's been around for, it looks like a couple of years. And it has an anonymous founder as well. It's not Jack, it's another
Whoa.
guy with a Twitter handle, but nobody knows who he is. But the platform, so Damus is built for the Apple, for iPhones, for the Apple Store. And then they have a Google version, and then they have a bunch of other, open source versions which can be accessed from web browsers and whatnot. And whatever you post on one protocol automatically uploads to other protocols. So I was testing back and forth because I have an iPad here. So I was posting on Damus.
Oh.
It automatically uploads to my Amethyst account, and they talk back and forth. Kind of interesting.
Okay. So I can interact with you on Amethyst then.
Yeah, so if you're getting censored on one platform for whatever reason, all your stuff's backed up on other platforms.
Nice. We are
There's
going
no
to start
censorship at
promoting
the protocol
we're-
level.
We're
on
going to
Nostra.
start promoting the show on those platforms then. Can't be a
Yeah, it's a
crypto
little
show.
buggy. I was messing with it today. It's definitely a little buggy still.
As is every startup. Oh well, it's much needed. And then there's an alternative Telegram and chess. So there's like a game you can play chess on the blockchain.
True.
Cool stuff. Just competition with popular apps that everybody uses. Chess.com, Telegram. So it's good stuff all around. All right, so. Let's see here. I'll let you speak to this about Brantley Connor. I haven't listened to the podcast yet with John Stokes' new founding, but what's the news there? Obviously, we're big Brantley fans.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a melancholy podcast, to be honest. He gave a lot of
no.
backstory, things that he didn't share at the Catholic Crypto Conference. But the big takeaway actually is I think it sounds like he's somewhat done with ENS. Not because he doesn't believe in it, but he just feels that there's a lot of pain there for him personally, and it's not something he can continue to do. Because he posted a few months back about possibly starting a new project in the space.
Sure.
But it looks like it's just not something he can do at this time. But
Bummer.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it makes sense though. Like I get it. Like and he's able to leave on his own terms basically, in terms of being like at least on the governance board that he wasn't voted off of. So it still is. It's an incredible witness, and hopefully someday we can have
he's
him on the
somewhat tied to
podcast.
the. Yeah, he's somewhat tied to the project no matter what, because he still has a heavy amount of vested tokens from his employment there at True Names Limited. And as far as I know, he's still director of the foundation that is kind of the real world presence of the DAO. So he's there. He's a big delegate. I assume he's not going to completely disappear from ENS, but it's not something that he can. He's going to seek employment in or continue to work in.
Sure. Okay. And then we'll do these two crypto ones, and then we'll talk about Mr. Powell. But Binance obviously bought out Voyager after FTX had to back out of the deal for obvious reasons. And Binance has agreed to allow Voyager customers to transition their accounts over to Binance. customers don't already have a Binance account, Binance is allowing them to create an account to move their funds over to, and this is actually a really generous step by Binance, because initially the plan was just to pay out fiat to customers based on the amount that their crypto was worth in fiat via the day that Voyager filed for bankruptcy last April. So I was surprised, but it could also be a double-edged sword. Obviously, if your funds become, less than what the fiat payment would be. So it all depends on what you're interested in. Some people just want their money back, but some people want their crypto back. I've seen both sides of the coin in the debates on the Voyager Reddit. I think people are just excited to get something back. It was looking a little bleak for a bit. So yeah, all the better. And then moving over, just wanted to touch on Genesis is going to refund Gemini customers. It's uncertain if the refund is going to be a one-to-one, but Gemini, the Winklevosses, they're going to put up at least 100 million of what is owed based on what I've seen. If you go on www.gemini.com/earn, they have all of the details there. They've been very transparent about what's been going on, and just credit to the Winklevosses for holding Genesis accountable for the shenanigans that they pulled with Luna and FTX. So I don't know if you guys have anything to say about those two stories. I know those were coming from my end a little bit more, but yeah.
I think it makes sense for Binance to bail out Voyager a bit, or Voyager customers. They, as the biggest exchange, right? They kind of have a motivation to want people to see crypto positively. So I think I'm happy that they're doing that.
I was surprised, honestly. I was surprised. So we'll go into this one here. Interesting stuff coming from Jerome Powell this week, and in terms of the Fed, and I just cringe every time I have to look at this stuff. But it affects everything financially that we deal with as a country, and even the crypto markets, unfortunately. And it's basically hinting at deflationary processes beginning, but not really confirming or denying like he usually does. Overall, feels a little hawkish to me still, just with the Fed in general. I can say, based on certain conditions that I am aware of, based on some of my work that I do, that this can bode true a little bit, but I haven't really seen it come into full effect where we're going to hit any standstills. But material costs are rising, and we see it in the grocery stores. We see it in just day-to-day products getting more expensive. So there could be some interesting things coming around, but what I do know is that there are certain industries that are experiencing decreases, and there are certain businesses that don't want to pass those decreases on. And in terms of what that means, different people working in different industries might know more than me, but that's just some stuff that I'm aware of. So I don't know what you guys think in this general econ type stuff, but I know we're not experts. But
it definitely doesn't feel like inflation has come down, does it?
No, not at all.
And on top of that, with the crypto markets recently running and the stock markets as well, doesn't really look like a good sign, right? If we're trying to combat inflation and then markets start pumping. So I think we're probably going to still see some dips coming up in the future. It's probably going to be a little bit of a process. Yeah. Maybe we've already bottomed in the crypto markets. I'm not saying we haven't. It's just I don't think things are going to be all up from here.
No, I think we have deeper depths to go personally, and I know I'm gonna get pushed and shoved for the FUD, but I do think that we have. I think there's still a lot of garbage out there that needs to get reconciled, and I could be completely wrong. I hope I am, but at the same time, who knows? So we'll know more. We'll know more in a couple of weeks. We'll also say that in a couple more weeks too. We'll know more in a couple weeks
For sure.
So
For sure. I think it's always interesting. Like the Fed seems to have a target rate of inflation, right? 2%. I know they talked about 4%.
Yeah.
So it's not like I don't know. I wonder if we'll see true deflation. I mean, we might see it in for some products, but if from now on inflation was only 2%, across the board, then we're still paying as much, and we're just going to pay only a little more next year instead of a lot more.
Exactly. There's no promise that the actual prices will come down, is there?
Yeah, I don't know. People, they're like, oh, let's lower inflation is different than deflation, right? A negative rate.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess just some other fun stories that I found. Thanks to FTX, we will not be watching crypto exchange commercials for the Super Bowl. Thank goodness. Those got a little annoying last year. I think they really put a damper on the industry too, especially in light of what happened to FTX.
The worst part of those commercials is that when you're at the party, everybody looks at you.
Yeah.
They know you're the
It's
crypto
true.
guy. They're like, oh yeah, crypto. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I know. Fortunately, you will not have to sit through that embarrassment with your family if you did any crypto investing with anybody or made any rash investment advice to your grandma. Who knows?
I actually
though?
handled
Yeah.
that very easily. I just moved away from my hometown, so don't have to have that
right?
discussion anymore.
Move to a different state like Connor and I have, and then you don't have to have those awkward discussions. Yep, I agree. All right. Interesting story too. Insider trading at Coinbase, which was it's a very interesting topic, and two gentlemen pleaded guilty in New York, and I hope that we get a little more I think we need there's a reckoning's coming because I think there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been reported correctly to the IRS, and which leads into the next story that I found today, that the IRS is hunting for it. They want to know what's going on in the digital asset industry, especially if you won like a lottery for like NFT or anything like that. They want awareness of it, especially if it's something that is like, say, it's like a Bored Ape or a CryptoPunk that is like quote unquote worth what they're worth. Like, they want to be aware of those things now. That'll be interesting to see how they go after it. And then lastly, a lot of action happening in the sandbox world. Just interesting stuff. Investments from Saudi investments and additional tokens getting released to the market. And I don't know if any of those stories speak to any of you guys, but those are just some of the stuff that I've found since we had our last episode. More news to come, but yeah, we're not a news show, but it's the topics that are accessible to us to talk about. And if we're not talking about the current events, in light of some of the topics that we bring up, I feel like it helps everybody in certain capacities.
I think the big question on my mind is if we're looking at a Fed that can inflate and deflate with their policies, what does this say about money?
Oh,
Yeah,
Connor,
yeah. What?
funny you
Money.
asked that question. Matt,
Perfect transition.
can you get in our topic today?
Sure. So we are talking about money. We didn't want just another what is money introduction. I think a lot of economists can do it better than us, or other people can explain it better than us to get through, what is it itself, maybe M1, M2, sound money, things like that. So just to start us off, a few properties of money, right? Money has to be something that is transferable, right? I can receive it for something and I can give it to receive something else. It has to retain some value, or it has to have some value. And it, good money retains it to some degree, right? If a dozen eggs are $3 right now, I hope they're still $3. I hope they're less, but we need some stability in there, right? For good money. And then, just to kind of history and to places where we are. I mean, you had stuff before gold coins, but ancient civilizations had precious metal coins, and so based on the weight of the coins and the denominations, that kind of served as money. The U.S. at least, we used to have our notes were backed by gold or silver at different times, and so they were worth this much gold, this much silver. And then now we're kind of in this fiat currency where there's nothing backing it but a promise, that a dollar is worth a dollar. So this is why we have the Fed kind of trying to change the supply. It's really capitalistic. It's supply and demand dictates what a dollar is worth relative to everything else. And then, modern invention, it was 14 years ago, I think, that Bitcoin came out. And so they said, hey, let's have this similarly not really like backed by anything currency. It's transferable, but it has kind of this built-in scarcity. There's a limited supply, and it's not issued by a central authority, but it's decentralized. And so anyway, so this is where we're at. So we're kind of at the stage. A lot of people in the crypto space think Bitcoin's going to replace everything else. I don't know. I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts. Maybe to start off, let's just think about what's the role of money, from a variety of perspectives, nationally, globally, and individually. How do we think about money? What are the roles? What is its role?
Yeah, I think we also wanted to kind of like ask some of the moral questions too surrounding the money topic, especially since here in the crypto space. I mean, I just know from talking to outsiders, my family, parents, whatnot, they're concerned about this idea of crypto being money. They're like, what's it based on? What's the value? How can it have real value? It's not tangible. And there's a lot of questions there about morality with different types of money. And I think it's kind of just from previous discussions prepping for this episode. I think that was kind of the topics that were coming up.
What's the role of money, nationally, globally, individually, and to a Christian, right? As a Christian, what does money mean to you? We'll throw that in too. If you want to speak to one of those, all of those, what does it do?
Yeah, I think for most Christians, money kind of brings up a lot of questions, and we're almost tempted to think there's a level of immorality associated with a lot of things that have to do with that conversation. But at its simplest definition, what is money? Money is a tool, and I think the more we think of money as a tool, the more we can kind of answer these types of moral questions and ask ourselves, am I using this tool for good, or am I using this tool for ill? I thought it was interesting. I was doing a little bit of research for the episode, and I came across some definitions from Thomas Aquinas, who spoke very wisely on a lot of issues. But he said, at simplest, money is a tool of exchange. And anything, and I mean, he built on that. Anything that kind of adds to that uses that asset for something other than exchange is kind of against the natural use of money. And some people who might be familiar with certain ideas from Aquinas, but something that goes against the natural use of an item in this world kind of lends itself to immorality. So it's kind of interesting to look at it in that light. Is this tool facilitating exchange? Yes. Okay. If it's not, are we using it correctly?
Mm-hmm. I think that's great. Yeah, bring in some natural philosophy, right? It's good to have something that's liquid, right? To say we can relate everything to a dollar, right? I don't have to know the exchange of eggs to chickens or, a gallon of gas to a gallon of milk, right? They're all a dollar. No, so that's good. That's good. Good to think about. Good to, yeah. How do we treat it as naturally as we can? And whenever we add things, how does it? Yeah, because you're right. It is a moral question, right? It is. Most things we do are moral, and even if we use neutral tools, right? You can use a brick to do something good or something bad. So
Yeah,
no,
because I
that's
mean, if
good.
you ask what is the role of money, like, oh, money is it's a tool for exchange, but it's also a tool that we can kind of rate something's value, right? We can speak about a vehicle or a house or a book in terms of its monetary value, and that gives it definition. But if we were to extend that definition and maybe use that for a human being, I think most people would think that we've exceeded the natural use of what money is for, and you can't use it for that. So when we're asking about what is the role of money, it has a lot of those kind of moral questions in there automatically.
That's good. Yeah, yeah. Is talking about someone's net worth, a bad thing? Is that equating them to a dollar value? No, that's good. That's good. Brandon, you
Yeah,
have
and
thoughts?
I'm in agreement with Connor here on a lot of it from an exchange standpoint, but I think we've lost a lot of that exchange capacity for money. Just like I'm thinking back to this conversation has got me thinking back to like more primitive times, kind of like revolutionary days when somebody like John Adams still had to work his farm and do all of his philosophizing and law as a side gig, basically. Like, he still had to do all of his chores, and a lot of those guys that were a part of that constitutional group were all still like they were still very attached to their land. Now, if some of them had slaves, some had a couple of resources that were able to put them in those positions of power in the colonies, but a lot of them had to work their family farms just to have subsistence for their family to live off of. And I mean, you can look back to even more primitive days of the New World. If you did not work, you did not eat, like literally. And like so many people died on the backs of that, just trying to get subsistence or just to find viability in this country that we reside in. And we have lost touch with the land and like doing work for just everyday essentials. We just don't have that anymore. Like, I grew up raising chickens, and we raised chickens, we collected eggs. We had so many eggs we didn't know what to do with. Sometimes we would butcher our chickens that we would raise, and I look back at that, and I look at what's going on with like the current market with groceries right now, and not being on a hobby farm like I grew up on. It What's happening right now has really made me want to go back to that a little bit. Like, I know how to raise chickens, I know how to hatch chicks. Like, I want that back. And just in terms of like how that all relates to money, it's like, but why can't things get more simple? And I'm not like calling for a trade and barter like system of economics, but why can't more people take on some responsibility in that respect and just own something for a change? And I think that it just take responsibility for something. And I do firmly believe that Bitcoin brings us back to that. And I'm not like, I agree with Robert Breedlove on a lot of his like kind of things that he stands on. Like, the accessibility of money in our society can almost be laughable to a certain extent, because it's like, yeah, it's so accessible, but look at how much gets taken from you from your paycheck to even like go do something. It's like, okay, like, I pay my bills, I do all my things, and then what's left, a lot of people right now, it's paycheck to paycheck, so it's not a whole lot. And it's unfortunate, and that's just kind of where I see, because there's enough in this country and even in the world for everybody to eat. and I understand that the poor will always be with us in some capacity. I'm not trying to, dishevel that, but these are just some of the things that I think about from time to time, and just understanding like and seeing the discrepancies in terms of opportunities that don't get afforded to certain people because of demographics, socioeconomic situations, and everything like that. It's just all those things connected. And I know I just went on a really weird tangent, but these are just some of the things that I have been thinking about when we brought up this topic. Is like, how can we bring money back to a more simplistic status where it is these things of transferability, store of value, just stable and just backed by something like there's money has no back, like there's nothing shielding your money, and I don't think people realize that, and I'm pounding the table for that to that point, and yeah.
I feel like
This is
what you,
good. Oh no, go on.
I was just gonna say, I feel like what you're kind of saying is like you said, we're kind of like divorced from the land in a sense, but we're also kind of like divorced from the actual like unit of work that like money represents. Because
Yeah.
I think in most of our daily lives, like money represents a unit of work. It represents my time traded for this
Yep.
monetary value, right? And so it's very easy to conceptualize that in a barter system when it's like or even not a very true barter system, but a system that is based on much more manual labor as the agricultural world was in the revolutionary times and whatnot. But
Yeah.
so I physically labored for this produce on the land, and now I'm going to exchange that for something, of equal value that represents my actual work. And we've kind of divorced that with the way the world works today. It's much more financial based, and
Yeah.
it almost it's a little divorced from that simple kind of aspect of labor.
I like this idea, and to kind of encourage your rant, Brandon. I wonder what you're sort of hinting at. What would a moneyless society look like today? Right? Yeah, I could imagine when you were growing up, you have eggs, and you have too many to deal with, and you have a neighbor who has too much. A dairy farmer who has too much milk to deal with, and you exchange that, right? And that's helpful. And how do I want to say this to kind of bring it back to a Christian lens? I think we can do this charitably as well, right? You can
Absolutely. Yep.
generously share your eggs, right? We don't have to barter, and not that we. Not that like barter's useless. Bartering is still good, so we can try to justly have exchanges between different quantities of things, right? But to have that kind of abundance mindset, right, as opposed to a scarcity mindset, right? To say I have too much and I'm going to freely give to other people, right? I don't know. I'm trying to imagine we have so much more of a service economy, right, than a goods economy.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean-
I think these levels of abstraction make it harder. Our work is actually less tied to our daily life, except for the time we're working, right? But to our needs, and I don't know if that's helping it. Connor, what were you going to throw
For
in?
sure.
I was gonna
For
say,
sure.
like, yeah,
I-
your question.
Go, Connor.
How would the digital economy work without money? Right. I think a lot of people work from home today. Actually, my dad might be listening to this. I know he works from home now since COVID.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you going to do? You're doing your job, and then it's like, okay, I need, half a dozen eggs delivered to my house in return for my labor. Like that sounds ridiculous, right? So
And Connor, I'll say this: I've been working in global supply chains since I graduated from college. How I ended up in the world of supply chain, it's beyond me. But it pays. It pays, and so basically, like, just seeing how cheap a product is made and manufactured in India because they have so much more scrap steel and labor is so much cheaper, just to bring it over here stateside to then be able to turn it over to a customer and make 70% margin on a product. It's just I mean, don't get me wrong, like it feels great because it's like, yeah, I'm putting a product out there for a customer that needs it, but I'm also exploiting an economic system that is so much more primitive than my own, all because they have just more junk lying around and cheaper labor. And obviously, like, we can factor in cost of life is less there, cost of living and things like that, but it's just it's not necessarily the most equitable by any
Yeah.
stretch.
Yeah, so much of money today is, or the work today is profited off of basically like inefficiencies in the market, right?
Yeah,
So
well,
it's kind of interesting.
All arbitrage.
the inefficiencies of the
It's
third
all
world,
arbitrage, really.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you look. Yeah, if you're not producing a good or providing a necessary service, yeah, it's you're arbitraging.
Very
No, this is
interesting.
good. This is good. So, what?
And here's the thing. I love looking for a deal. I love looking for the deals. I love it. But it does it. I don't know. Sometimes I think about it and I'm like, like where's the equity sit and where's the ethics sit with some of this? Like, that's some of the thing. It's not like you're throwing it out the window, but because you are helping out that manufacturer or that vendor, but it still is like, I don't know. You guys know what I mean, though,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, for sure. So to get back to this question, though, and I'm kind of digging on this. I know this wasn't in our original plan, but
No, go for it.
this moneyless society, right? What would and obviously we can't have moneyless because, like you said, Connor, your dad works remotely for these people, and then he said, he needs to get a dozen eggs, for his labor. But to try to add, to maybe help us remove ourselves from the pull of money. I don't know. I guess I can imagine, if I was a plumber, right? I can freely give of that service to people, right? It's a service. It's not a product I'm making. But I don't know, like how, if I develop websites, like how do I don't know, how do I develop websites for other people? Like how do I don't know, like, is there a way to make this work in the modern day? Is there a way to, exchange services with other people? The way that you could exchange goods or exchange services for goods that you're, trying to, at least as much as you can, remove money from the equation as the middleman.
I don't. I mean, I would venture to say no. I would venture to say it just wouldn't work, and this is one of the reasons we need crypto. But it's actually kind of interesting. So you're asking if it's possible to exchange service for service, and of course the classic problem is, okay, what if said person doesn't need whatever service you provide? Then you have to find somebody who does need your service, exchange that for something else that they want, and then you go back, and that's kind of the problem with the barter system, right?
Yeah.
And so going back to the history of money, we kind of had these barter systems, and then we moved through a few things. Actually, here in Florida, there's an island you can go to where you can see a big mound of seashells, and that was the original money source. Okay, but the next step, basically, from the barter system is basically gold, silver, precious metals. Became coinage, and that was kind of a universally accepted form of value that could then be money, and we can exchange that, right? And then because precious metals are maybe somewhat difficult to carry around, they are somewhat heavy, whatever you want to say, we switched to paper money, and it's backed with gold, right? Okay. A lot of people think that where things went wrong is that we went to this paper system, and then we eventually just lost the backing of gold. So now our money isn't backed with anything. It's not real. It's just paper money. Okay. I don't think that viewpoint is entirely great. And all right, so I have to relate it back to your question. But what I'm trying to say is
You don't have to. Keep going.
No,
You're on a good train of thought.
it does. It connects back. So the problem is people who have that mindset, they want to go back to a gold system because in their mind, gold is real. It's real money as opposed to the paper money that we have today. But in your service economy situation, or sorry, in the digital economy situation, there's really no way to exchange gold. There just isn't. Like, what are you going to do? Mail your gold to somebody who lives halfway across the world? Hope that the postal service delivers it in time, and then you still have to wait. and you don't know if it's going to get lost in shipment. Like you need digital money in a digital world. But then the real problem with all of this is what makes gold real value? Just because it has some sort of tangibility to it, because it's physical. We've just decided.
So I do argue with my friend about this a lot. He's a material scientist, so he's like he does say like you could do something with gold, right? If I had all this gold, like I could make something beautiful. It's shiny. It conducts really well. It has these it doesn't rust, right? It has all these good properties. But anyway, so it's precious, right? It does have these inherent properties that but
right. But the real problem is its actual value far exceeds its utility. The value of gold is not based on the utility of gold, and there's more value than just that. It's used in a lot of electronic sources. It's used in satellites and whatnot. You need the conductive properties of gold for certain things. So it has that baseline of utility, but its value is not based on that. The value of gold is totally perception based. Its value is basically its perceived value. So in marketing, you kind of have different levels of value. And you can have your baseline kind of utility value, and then you can add, brand value. The value in the mind space of somebody who maybe is wearing a Nike is more valuable because it's a Nike brand than if, whatever the shoe or the jacket provides, right?
Absolutely.
So you kind of add these abstractions of value. And the reality is all money, gold, the US dollar, crypto, its value is not based on utility, it's based on its perceived value. Everybody agrees that it's valuable.
So I do think the dollar has a utility, right? So to open this up to a global system, right? The dollar is kind of the what do they call it? The global reserve currency, right? We make sure. I think this is we call it the petrodollar, right? Because we made sure that they only sold gas in the Middle East in dollars, and so we kind of force this utility, right? But then it kind of just because everybody needs gas, it stretches out further than that, and so now everything is measured in dollars. I could spend dollars. I live close to the Canadian border, and in Canada, I've been at a few places where they'll take dollars and they'll say, hey, US dollars, and they'll say, this is fine, we'll do the exchange rate, and I'll give you change in Canadian dollars, but like I'll take it. And nowhere here is going to accept Canadian dollars. Like nowhere here in the US is accepted. Like I've been to other places that are like, no, we'll take US dollars, but I've never been somewhere here that takes Canadian dollars.
I have a funny one to tell you. So I was fortunate enough to be able to go to China when I was 13 on a choir trip, and they would literally sell us like fake Rolexes on the street for $5, for $5 American in China. So your principle with Canada there, it's global. So trust me, it's global. Even Mexico, yeah.
Yeah, so we might call this adoption, right? The U.S. dollar is adopted everywhere, or to some degree, it's the most popular one, but. I don't know. So how do we change that, right? If people are trying to change that with Bitcoin, like what's that going to look like? What barriers do we have to kind of break to get?
Yeah, I feel like kind of the real question that we're asking is not like, so the US dollar, I wouldn't say it has utility per se with the petrodollar. I would say it has security because of the petrodollar. And that's a question that comes up in crypto a lot. What secures the system? Well, really what secures the system with modern forms of currencies is the strength of the government, right? So we might dislike certain things about the American, whatever you want to call it, the American government, the American regime, certain policies, certain foreign policies, whatnot. But basically all of that actually secures the value of the US dollar. And same with other currencies that aren't anything that's not the US dollar. It doesn't have the petro system supporting it, but it does have the strength of said country basically supporting its value. So in some ways, by using the US dollar, we're contributing to that system. We're contributing to the security of it. In the same way, by using Bitcoin, we're contributing to the security of it. And so really, if you just, my point is, if you just accept this, that no, there is no value to money. Like people say, oh, the value of Bitcoin is that it's money that you can spend. I mean, it's kind of you're kind of just walking in circles at that point. Forget it. It's perceived value. If enough people believe it works, it works. That's just the way money is.
Connor, this is exactly what I have been thinking about since 2020. The psychology of money has been an idea that I've been thinking about, and it really got me to a point. Like when you think about 2020, it didn't matter if you were rich or poor. It just happened to be where you were. We were all isolated in our homes, and it didn't matter how much money you had. Yeah, some people could go out and do like different things, whatever they had access to. Cool story. But at the core of it, we were all basically locked in, and it did not matter how much money you had. You were stuck, kind of. And some of us were fortunate enough to be able to work from home, maybe get put on furlough, collect a little unemployment, or maybe some of us had a nice enough nest egg or a mansion in Beverly Hills. It didn't matter. You were stuck inside your house, and you only went out to get groceries, or you had groceries delivered to you, depending on your status, whatever. So I've truly come to this conclusion that money, although it does provide status, it sometimes doesn't mean a lot, especially when we're speaking about net worth, because net worth is factoring in assets that somebody owns too, and we don't know what everybody is liquid normally. Money can buy you status, it can get you a little bit of power, but what is it actually worth? And have you ever seen the movie Downsizing? It's a really trashy movie. Matt Damon movie, came out in 2017. Essentially, the concept of the movie is if you decided to shrink yourself and live in this like luxury, like very decadent world, if you had six figures saved up, basically, you were golden and you were considered a millionaire because you were miniaturizing yourself. And I find that crypto is kind of similar to that, depending on what assets you put yourself in, because you all of a sudden take like $100 USD, and that's worth like a billion sheep, and it's you're devaluing. You have the ability to like become a millionaire or a billionaire in another world, kind of. It's not necessarily apples to apples, but you have the ability to just kind of change what your money is defined as with crypto. And I don't know, like I'm not advising anybody to go do that with the lowest, like, oh, this is worth fractions of a penny, let me put all of my nest egg into this crap coin. But like crypto has the ability to just change the way the scarcity of money is looked at via Bitcoin, and just the way that we interact with each other, and just the way we find the value in things. Here's where I agree with Robert Breedlove. I think we deal with a very trashy society and kind of a trashy world with trashy products, because the value of money is no longer what it was, especially because anybody can go out and get a credit card today and live off a bunch of leverage and debt and not have to work and just collect unemployment. And that's just something that it just fascinates me, that we live in a society that deems that as acceptable. And even, you look at what the government does incentivizing that with student loans going to college. The government sets everyday people up for failure, and by just giving them a bunch of money that they can't pay back. And I don't know, like just seeing all the wasted degrees for left-handed puppetry that end up in our universities, all because FAFSA says they can. It's ridiculous. And it's just interesting to me that we can we can take money and change what it is and how it can increase value in a society by increasing the scarcity and the value of it simultaneously with cryptocurrency. Will this ever happen? Not in our lifetimes, I believe, but will there be a start in that direction? I think it's coming, especially as CBDCs are getting more prevalent.
That's good. I want to maybe summarize what you were saying. I like, this idea of the downsizing it. You're right. It's almost like a fantasy, right? Whether it's in the form of
Yeah.
loans or it's in the form of, buying something that, you expect or you're promised that it's going to, go up this much. People are, we're living in this fantasy. Like I will be at that point someday. Or I am at that point now because I'm over leveraged, and that is good. That is good to think about psychology. I do wonder. So we're talking bad about the dollar. What would it mean? And I'm curious to play this out. I've never played this out in my head. Like what would it mean if like we get to a point, like what would this look like if we get to a point where Bitcoin or something else is the global standard, and so no government is issuing a currency? Like what happened? What's the American government do in that scenario? What does any government do in that scenario? Like what? How does that change things?
You're asking how does it change things if Bitcoin or any crypto becomes a standard?
Maybe not that as much as there's this question like what happens to a government if they lose the ability to mint their own money, right? That's worth something, right? Especially America as we're the global reserve currency. What does America do when they no longer are the global reserve currency and they're they can't mint any more money because it's worthless? Like what? How do they respond to that? Like, what are the logical steps? What happens next?
That's scary. Connor, just a second. That's a scary thought because what happens to allow that to occur? That's what's scary. You get what I'm saying? Like, if all of a sudden U.S. currency is no longer the global standard, something bad has to have happened. Something really bad had to have happened.
Not necessarily, because I mean,
I know,
Pretty
but
slow
you
transition.
know what I mean. You know what I mean, because they're going to clench on their pearls as long as they can.
yeah, but it's already happening because the only thing that
True.
makes USD the global standard right now is the petrodollar, and we already see that being basically challenged, which happening with Russia, and Russia's producing a lot of oil now, and the pipeline that they were building to Germany, or they built, I guess, and so that's already being challenged. And every other world currency is on its own floating system. So if the US dollar goes to a floating system, I think it will happen in a lifetime, and I don't think it's going to be quite as drastic as you think it is. But it's going to definitely hurt America in some sense. But
It will be challenged. It will be challenged because Russia's setting up what they're setting up. China already has the Belt and Road Initiative laid out in a lot of more primitive economies. Like China's supply chain is robust, guys. Like it's really impressive, honestly. Like I'm not saying it's the best, but best quality, but like the infrastructure's built.
yeah,
That's the thing.
What really makes things difficult is it makes the global trade system less easy, I guess.
Yeah.
So without a global system, if everything's floating, and then there's almost like a country has unlimited access to basically money manipulation, and there's going to be lots of currency wars with nothing that kind of provides any foundation of stability. So, but Matt kind of had two questions there. He said, one, what happens if the U.S. dollar is no longer the global reserve currency? But then two, like they lose the ability to mint. You're basically asking what happens if they just no longer have control over the money supply, right?
You're right, because I think there are two ways to think about that, right? You could think hyperinflation, so it's worthless to keep minting. I am trying to look at like what does the future look like for Bitcoin maxis, who say, in this floating scenario, now Bitcoin becomes the global reserve. Everyone starts using Bitcoin. What does the government do in that scenario, right? I don't know. I'd like to imagine, they might tax it higher, right? Because all government expenditures are either coming from stuff they get from taxes or stuff they're minting, right? And so if they can't mint anything and they want to keep doing what they're doing, they might try to get more taxes. I don't know. It might be harder to collect them if people are doing, things more anonymously or trying to, add anonymity to certain things. I don't know, like
Yeah.
what else happens?
Yeah. Well, the real problem with Bitcoin becoming the global reserve currency is there's no way to control it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's why most governments, the U.S. included, would kind of, I mean, the U.S. especially would kind of shun that option. But assuming that is what happens, I mean, it doesn't rule out the possibility of manipulation. There's still, ability there. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question.
What happens to Bitcoin if the internet just gets shut off?
Okay,
They have
that's
a
like
protocol for mailing the pigeons.
okay,
Did
I'm
you
that's
see
sorry.
that?
I'm sorry. I want to throw that out there. That's
that's
something
the
I've thought
same.
about.
Yeah, that's a big boomer question. That's what my grandpa's asked me, right?
I,
But
I
all right,
I'm
let's
not
be
trying to
honest.
be
If the
boomers.
global internet gets shut off, like we have bigger things to worry about than money. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
and let's be
Okay. Yeah.
honest. If it
Yeah.
gets shut off, like we lose money, the USD too, because
True.
most of our currency is digits stored in a bank's computer, basically, right?
True.
Like we don't have like a physical money system right now, so
Just had to throw that out there. I don't think it's in the U.S.'s best interest to shut off the Wi-Fi, but I just wanted to throw that question out there to play devil's advocate.
well. Let me say this: like, I think I think most people don't like the U.S. monetary system. I think most people think it's bad, immorally that bad things are being done with it. I think most people don't
Especially
like
on
the
the
tax system.
international level.
Yeah, and but also I think most people think that it's just not safe, looking at the way
Yeah.
things inflate and then deflate, and it constantly looks like there's going to be some mega crash. I think most people are pretty wary of USD, but I think the response from a lot of people, especially with that kind of question, is, well, what's the next best safe haven? Well, I need physical assets, or I need gold, or something like that. We need to go back to the gold system.
Sure.
Growing up, I know that was always the big thing that was basically fed to me. We need to go back to the gold system. Invest in gold. Gold is what's valuable. That's real money. This paper
That's
money is not real. Go back to
spoken
gold.
like my grandpa for
I've seen
sure.
all the
Yeah.
commercials. Cash for
Yeah, I
gold,
mean,
right?
we all know Ron Paul, like, end the Fed. I mean, that's basically the ideology, right?
Yeah.
But I think the reality is the internet's not going to get shut down. We live in a global world. We live in a digital economy, and going back to gold, one, is not going to help us because you really can't spend it. But two, if anything, it just helps you. It helps you preserve your wealth. You know, how are you going to support the global church with your stack of gold? Like, maybe some of us support missionaries overseas or whatnot. Like, how are you going to send them money with your gold? Like, you're not. So the reality is, you have to look at the world from a digital economy perspective. And
Yep.
to me, crypto offers the best solution for that.
Yeah, bringing it back, yep, to crypto, I would agree. It does provide the best solution. I mean, and I would say like this is a big like blow at Western Union right now, but I think I'm only curious as to how long it's going to take institution like that is used to sending currency internationally to adopt like crypto as something that they need to be a part of. And I think that's the domino to fall, is like when we see an institution like that realize we're getting fleeced by this crypto stuff, because people can send money to their family a lot more efficiently and more practically and more cost effectively than what we can. That's the domino that I'm waiting to fall, to see like more crypto initiatives be opened up on a more broader societal level. And we see these countries like El Salvador, Panama, Brazil, like trying to get more crypto activated. Apparently Tether is used in more countries than what I realized, which I was shocked by. But yeah, I need to see it done at like a business level or like a banking level here in the States to really be like, okay, yep, we're getting on this train, let's go. So Yeah.
So to close this out, I think a question that kind of wraps up where we're going anyway. You all seem to, I think we all seem to balk at the idea of nobody issuing a currency and us only running on Bitcoin in the whole world, right? And so I don't know if we might agree that there might be a hybrid approach in the future, right? Is Bitcoin the global reserve and used for kind of these international transactions while countries might still mint their own currency? I don't know. Do you have what's the vision there? What is the vision of the future that incorporates crypto or Bitcoin and also, like understands the reasons that the U.S. government is going to always want to be able to print the dollar, Europe is always going to have euros and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Is there a hybrid system? What's the vision of the future there?
I personally almost think it's not possible because the challenge is too great, and for the U.S. government to give up and to basically allow Bitcoin to exist is to give up basically everything that the U.S. dollar represents for the U.S. government, just to allow it to exist. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's impossible for traditional forms of money to coexist with Bitcoin. I just don't think they're going to want to. But that being said, okay, if it is to coexist, the first thing that has to happen is we have to stop taxing Bitcoin or other forms of crypto that is used as money, Bitcoin being the most prominent. We have to stop taxing exchanges of those, as taxable events, because it basically makes it almost impossible to use as a currency. If every time you're buying something, you're taxed on whatever the profit or possible loss that exchange was. It just makes it impossible to deal with.
Yeah, we can't be operating in the same world of stocks and bonds. We can't be in that same camp as them, and this will be awesome for a regulatory track that we'll have to go down someday too. It's huge right now. We need our own set of rules. I know that there's some people in Washington that are pushing for that, and I'm very pro that. But yeah, it comes down to being in tax season. I think is a good time to talk about this. Like, get a good accountant in your corner if you're into a lot of crypto. Like, I know I'm not supposed to give financial advice, but I think this is just good all around advice. Yeah, it's just business professional advice. If you're crypto is like a side hustle, and you need to treat it like your own business. And if you don't have a good accountant in your book of business or contacts that you're working with, you need to change that. It relieves a world of hurt, and just make sure you're getting the right documents. From of what are all the services out there? Coinly.
I use Coinly too. Yeah,
I use Coinly too. They're the best one.
I used another one too for an exchange that I was having trouble with, getting onto Coinly. I forget what it's called, but it was a really practical service. These services are out there. They spit out just the proper forms for you. I can't recommend it enough.
A lot of people don't know this too, because a lot of these services, like Coinly, is expanding a lot of supporting more and more chains. I've seen even since last year, they're supporting more chains now, which is great. But you don't have to manually input all those transactions. You can actually go to like Etherscan or whatever the equivalent is for whatever project you're trying to get, and you can put your wallet address in or whatever it is that you've been using to exchange with. Your wallet address, okay. Yeah. You put your wallet address in, and then you can download a CSV of all of your transactions and just upload that to a service like Coinly, and it'll pull in all that. So, just a tip for those of you out there who thought you had to manually do each one, as I originally thought I did. You do not.
Yeah, they have API keys for you to utilize for the exchanges as well. So I know that's sensitive information, but the platforms are very good about giving you a secret phrase, passphrase, and then you can add an additional secret phrase as well. So the security is pretty tight. I create a new one every year for it. Okay. So it just makes it easier. and I feel more confident.
A
I'm
new
trying to find
API or a new like Coinly account?
no, oh, just new API keys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I can't. Not a new Coinly account. That would be
Yeah, because it kind of needs
that'd
your
be
previous
frustrating.
information to calculate the new
Yeah.
information, so it's a little,
And if you
little
use
tough.
Coinly, if you use Coinly early enough, buy it for next year. They'll usually give you a 15% off coupon, or they sent me a 30% off coupon to pay for 2024 early. So, if you're
Yeah,
in crypto for the long haul, you might want to get some of these services in your back pocket, and
definitely.
hopefully you're benefiting from what you're making in cryptocurrency, because otherwise, the forums aren't cheap, but hopefully you're doing your cost analysis correctly to make the juice worth the squeeze, because just getting that stuff tight and proper just makes Uncle Sam that much more happier and gets you in less trouble down the road.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a peace of mind thing too. I found a good accountant who knows crypto. He's very knowledgeable, and it's good. But no, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. So I think we'll
Can I
keep
ask
talking
one
in the
more?
future.
Can I ask
Oh,
one more
sure.
question?
Yeah, go for it.
What do you guys say that there's one thing people can do with their with like just with their socioeconomic status or money in general, like just not like necessarily financial advice, but what's some advice that you can give people that are like that aren't really sure like what to do with their money, if they should invest a little into crypto, or like what can they do to make their money more sound or have more value? And I know that that's teetering on financial advice, but guess I'm just curious, because I'm just going to say something really practical. So, and I'm not a big Ben Shapiro fan anymore, but I once was. And the three things that he said that I'm always going to I'm always going to keep in my back pocket, to remain out of poverty. And I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to speak to anybody's personal situation or offend anybody, but these are just three things that I thought are very practical. Graduate high school, get a full-time job where you're working 40 hours a week, and then wait to have kids until you're married. That's the best financial advice I think I've ever heard, and just for anybody, anywhere. And it's not even really financial advice; it's just good life advice. So I'm just curious, what do you guys have to say to that? Since we're speaking on the topic of money and stuff like that.
I mean, I don't want to disagree with the things you said.
No, I know.
think they're three good things to do. I don't know. I don't want to hand out any financial advice. I feel weird saying like, oh, you should be contributing 10% of your income to, a 401k, right?
Sure.
That's a good thing to do, but that's not generalizable to everyone, right?
No, I get it. Yeah.
Budgeting is good. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think most people, or most financial advisors, I work for a financial advisor, so I hear this kind of stuff all the time. But diversifying your assets is always a good idea.
Yeah.
So don't put all your eggs in one basket. I personally think that crypto is something that it should be an egg in your basket in some way or another, and not this isn't like financial advice. Actually, this is kind of the opposite of financial advice to some level. Like I think you probably could end up making money on some of these things in the long term, but that's not why I would suggest that you have crypto in your portfolio. I would suggest because I think you have to be doing something to support a future that's better than the one we have, and on some level you have to recognize that there's a lot of immorality with certain ecosystems, and you shouldn't always be making decisions based on what's going to get you more wealth. Sometimes you have to make the difficult decisions because it's the right thing to do. So, and that doesn't mean that crypto is what that is, but at least start exploring things. Here's what I'll say. If you're concerned about it, don't buy Bitcoin. Start looking for opportunities to use it, okay? And then just, if you're going to invest, don't invest. Buy whatever you need to play in the ecosystem, If you find someone who's offering to sell you something and you can either use USD or Bitcoin, well, do Bitcoin and just buy Bitcoin there on the spot and make the transaction happen. Start learning how to use the tools that is Web3 and is crypto. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Matt, close us out.
Gosh, sorry, I wanted to close out on the other topic because I was going to say talking about taxes and paying your taxes and stuff is good on several levels, right? Jesus said, render under Caesar what's Caesar's, right? He wasn't opposed to taxes, and I do think we could do a future episode on regulation and just talk about what, I don't think regulation is bad. I think some level of regulation is good and needed, and but we could explore what's good and what's bad regulation. I think that any future that involves crypto to any extent is going to depend on what level of regulation we have is going to produce what level of crypto is being used. And so to my question, to answer my question earlier, I do see we could have a future that has Bitcoin and US dollars, and they would just be regulated a certain way, right? Maybe this is only seen as an investment class and you can't sell it, or maybe it's I don't know. Maybe there's a certain relationship that the government tries to put between the dollar and a Bitcoin, and I don't know. We'll talk more about this. We'll talk more about what regulation might look like, what regulation should look like, so that people they don't lose. The government doesn't want to lose the power they have to mint dollars and to run at least the national economy. Even if they lose global reserve status, they still want to be in control of their own nation's economy. But how do they reconcile those two things? The perhaps inevitable adoption of Bitcoin or some other crypto, or and what power they want to retain. So anyway, we'll future episode. We've got a lot of future episodes planned out. A lot of great topics. I enjoyed chatting with all of you. I think this was great. Loved getting into it. Loved the rants. Loved the back and forth. Loved the disagreements. Nothing like a discussion without a disagreement.
Yeah. No, it's a gift for sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So
anyway,
with that being said,
time.
we'll see you all next time. Like, subscribe, find us wherever podcasts are found, and we'll see you all in the next episode.